Ask a Reporter for another week.
Hi.
Hello. My name is Nathan.
And I'm Ruby. Hello.
Ruby's first time doing Ask a Reporter today, so make her feel welcome. Say hello. Hello. Today we're looking at Guam, which is the story that Ruby covered with the help of some kids from Guam, which is very lovely. To start off, do you want to just talk to us about how you got in contact with those kids and what the process was like getting them to film the story?
Yeah, sure. So we didn't go to Guam for this story. We got the kids to... Spoiler alert, we did not fly to Guam. That would be nice if that was a perk of our job, but... So we contacted some kids over there through a school in Guam. So we looked up, a few different schools. We got in touch with a few, and one of them got back to us and said, "We've got some kids that are happy to talk to you." And they got a photographer over there to go and interview some kids and just get them to talk about what life is like on Guam. And they told us all about it and sent us the footage back, and then we edited it into a piece about Guam.
Very good. Now we're going to jump straight into your Guam questions. There's lots and lots of them to get through, so we'll try and get through as many as we possibly can in the next half hour or so, roundabout. But first, we've got a question here from BHPS, which I'm assuming is some kind of primary school. BH, primary school, somewhere. Anyway, Angela wrote in the question just saying, what's it like to be a reporter? So let's just start there. What's it like being a reporter?
Oh, it's not very Guam related, but...
You can relate it to Guam if you like.
Relate it to Guam. Being a reporter is great. For me, I think it's like the ideal job because you get to learn about all different things. Every week you get a different topic and you get to do research into all different kinds of things, which is good if you're someone like me with a very short attention span. I love jumping from one topic to the next, and being a reporter for BTN is especially fun because you get to make the stories creative and kooky and interesting and just a little bit more fun than straight news. But I think if you're someone who, is very curious about the world and doesn't mind sort of getting on the radio or getting in front of the camera, then being a journalist, being a reporter is a great career move.
It is a lot of fun, I have to say too. And one of the good bits is getting involved with kids, talking to kids, finding out their views on things like what's it like living in Guam, which leads us to Guam questions.
Oh, good segue.
Thank you. Should be on today tonight. Okay, we'll start with a bit of a general one. Scone Public School in New South Wales wants to know, does North Korea have a nuclear warhead potentially that could reach Australia? Do we know that?
Look, we don't know for sure. And I think the only people that really do know the answer to that question is North Korea. The thing is, we can only believe we can only know what they put out there into the public record. And so North Korea would like the rest of the world to think that they have a nuclear warhead that could reach Australia, Guam, the other side of the world, because they, obviously want everyone to think that they are very powerful and can do what they want. So that's what they're telling us. As for whether it's true, there's not really a way to verify it. So potentially, yes, maybe not. We do know that the North Korean missiles are getting more and more powerful over time as their technology gets better and better, which is why, the world is preparing for, if that does eventuate, if North Korea can develop a missile that is that powerful, we're going to err on the safe side and assume that, maybe they are developing something that's that powerful.
Absolutely. It's an incredibly secretive country, and so it's very hard to know for sure about anything that's happening there, which makes it kind of a little bit scarier, I suppose, for a lot of countries because they don't know exactly what's happening, so they just have to prepare just in case. So it's a very interesting case study, and it's worth having a look at some of our previous stories that we've done on North Korea too, so you can find out a little bit more about the ruler of the country and what it's like for the people there as well. Let's move on to our next question. Seaview Downs Primary want to know, what should you do if your country is being threatened? Or what would you do, maybe, if your country is being threatened? Would you worry about it or just be extremely cautious? What do you think you would do?
It's a tough one because I think the best thing you can do in these situations is what your government tells you to do. So, for example, the government of Guam at the moment, it's a US territory, but the people on Guam are telling everyone basically to be alert but not alarmed. So they've put some measures into place to prepare people for just in case something does eventuate. They've issued instructions for, what to do in case, there is a nuclear missile that is heading towards Guam, what they're going to do in preparation for that. So we heard it out in the story. There's a few kids, Gia, Ezra and Tobias were telling us that in their schools they've been given emergency kits, and they're going to use, and they've been told of rooms to go to just in case there is an emergency beacon that's, or I guess it would be like an emergency alarm that goes off, something like that.
An air raid siren kind of.
Yeah, so if that
like
stuff
that.
does happen, yes.
Maybe
Maybe
like
it's
that.
more of a whoop whoop.
Oh, it could be like that. It sounds a bit party milling. Anyway.
Yeah, it probably wouldn't be a celebration.
No.
Anyway, if that does happen, if there's a siren, they probably have learned what that siren sounds like, and if it goes off, what they need to grab and where they need to go and who they need to listen to. So, in answer to your question, I think it's good to listen to the people who know what they're talking about, who know what to do in these cases, and trust that, your government is going to tell you the safest thing to do. And that's what the people in Guam are doing.
Now, Miss Cox from Berkeley Public School wants to know, how long would it take for a bomb from North Korea to get to Guam if it was launched? Do we know whether they would get any warning, or would it just be completely unwarned kind of thing?
So, again, it's a bit hard to know because we don't know the exact details about these missiles. But what I can tell you is that the US, so the United States says, because Guam is US territory, the US is, responsible for defending Guam. And Guam is made up of military bases. A third of Guam is military bases. And so there's a lot of, military capability on Guam to protect them from an attack. The US says that if the North Korea did launch a missile towards Guam, they would know within moments. That's what they've told the media, that they would know within moments that there was a missile launched. In terms of how long it could take to get to Guam, we don't know exactly, but it would be fast. So it's about 3,000 kilometers away. Sorry, 3,000. I think it was maybe 3,500 kilometers away. And it would be in the range of about 15 minutes is what I've seen online, is people's guesstimations. So you'd be talking about, less than an hour, more than a few minutes, but there wouldn't be much time at all. It'd be pretty fast.
Which is where all that practice that the kids were talking about comes in handy too.
Yeah, that's right. You get the warning and you have to just jump into action.
Know what to do.
Yep.
Get to it. My next question just moved a little bit. There it is. Ruben Braden wants to know, why Guam? What is it about Guam that makes North Korea focused on this tiny little island in the middle of nowhere?
I think the people on Guam are asking the same question. Why us? Because they're not really, involved in this. The reason they're involved in this is mainly a geographical one. So, I don't know if we can pull up a map here.
Yeah.
Ooh, a map! Ready? We're going to go to a map right here.
See, graphics.
There you go. Oh, there's the map. Isn't that nice?
So on this map, you can see us in Australia there, and north of Australia is Guam, and then you've got northwest of Guam is North Korea, and then all the way on the other side, you've got the United States. So basically the reason Guam is important is because it's owned by the United States, but it's close to North Korea. So if North Korea want to threaten the United States, they can threaten Guam and have the same effect, but with something much closer to them. So their missile capabilities, they might be able to launch missiles that can get to Guam, but it's less likely that they could launch missiles that would get all the way to the United States.
Wow, I really like that map. That is brilliant. It's a map. How cool are we? Sorry, I'm really excited about that. Right, Mark Oliphant College and Amity. Hi, Amity. Wants to know, how likely is this to happen? Like, is it something that we're saying, oh, it's definitely going to happen, or is it one of these things where we're going, actually, it's probably pretty unlikely to happen?
Again, I know this is the answer every time, but we don't really know, and there's some disagreement about this, about how likely it is to happen. The reason this was in the news so much in the past few weeks is because it kind of started looking more and more likely because North Korea issued a threat And the US responded, saying, well, if you do launch missiles, we are going to take swift action. I think the words that President Donald Trump used were fire and fury. And, which for some people thought that was quite a provocative thing to say, and they worried that would escalate the tensions and that, something might come of that. But then North Korea backed off a little bit and said that they weren't going to launch missiles. So it's definitely a tense situation. The Guam governor, his name is Eddie Calvo, has said that the island is safe and secure and that they're not worried. And certainly the people on Guam, we've had some ABC reporters over there talking to residents of Guam. They don't seem too worried. They've said that, yes, they're definitely concerned. They're keeping an eye on the news, but it's kind of life as usual for them. And certainly tourism in Guam hasn't stopped. People are still going there. So it's kind of life as usual. They're kind of behaving as though it's not going to happen. But at the same time, you've got the government issuing these, instructions for just in case, because they want to stay safe and they want to have everything in place for just in case it does. But yeah, it's certainly not a climate of fear. We're not too no one's hiding under their bed at night.
Yeah, the kids were holding up very well, and I think one of the things that one of those reporters said in those pieces was that this isn't the first time Guam's been threatened either. They've been threatened many, many times in the past by North Korea. So for them, it's kind of like, oh, this is happening again kind of thing. Whereas for the rest of us, because this one got a lot more attention, we're kind of going, oh, now I know where Guam is, and, it must be really scary living there right now. But, for them, it's kind of more normal than anything, which is a bit sad, I suppose. But, again, part of living there.
The tensions between North Korea and the US have been going on for a long time. It's not a news story that they, don't get on very well. And Guam, has always been kind of stuck in the middle of this because they're so close to North Korea. So yeah, it's, as you were saying, it's not that big a deal for the people on Guam. It's just a bigger deal for the rest of the world because this is one of the first times that the US, the US president has stood up and given a retaliation like he did. Has said, if you do this, we will take action back, and that's kind of why it made the news. But it's definitely not a new thing that, Guam gets picked on by North Korea.
Matilde from Mr. Herd's class wants to know, why does Kim Jong-un keep threatening to bomb other countries? Do we have any idea, or is he just too secretive to know?
It's a complicated one with North Korea because there's so many different reasons behind why one country ever threatens to bomb another, and it's usually complicated allegiances the countries have to one another, disagreements they're having over separate political issues. So whenever Kim Jong-un makes a threat, it's if he's threatening one country, it's usually because of how that country's relationship, what it's like with the US, what they have or haven't done in terms of some agreement that's been in place. Like, that's why politics is called politics, because it's just so hard to keep up with who's getting on with whom. It's just each time there is a disagreement or a threat is made, you can trace it back usually through the politics and figure out why that country is angry at the other one, but it's really complicated.
Yeah, and it can change very quickly too, which is why when big breaking news happens, that people tune in because they want to know what other countries are thinking and what they might do next. So that's why everyone pays very close attention. Next question from Ebony from Mark Oliphant College. Would you like to go to Guam?
I would love to go to Guam. I wish I had been able to go to Guam with the story.
It's too expensive.
Yeah, it's a bit pricey to get over there. The ABC won't pay for it.
No, we won't. Sorry.
But Guam is, as you might have seen from the pictures of the story, I hadn't seen much of Guam before I did this story.
No.
But the pictures that we got sent back were just beautiful.
Amazing.
It's a tropical island. Their average temperatures are like 30 every day, all year. Sunshine, beautiful water. It's got a great healthcare system, great education system.
Cloudy here. Cloudy and cold.
Here we are in cloudy, cold Adelaide. But it would be a great place to visit and to live, I suspect. looks like the kids that we spoke to really love living there.
Yeah.
They play lots of different sports. They go swimming. They play golf. So yeah, I'd love to visit Guam.
Charlie wants to know from Mr. Herd's class, what do they mean by the weather changing every 5 minutes?
Oh, I remember Gia saying that. That's a good question. I'm not sure exactly what she meant by that, but I guess in a tropical area like where Guam is, it can probably rain like quite. I imagine it would be quite a rainy place. So maybe she means that it just starts and stops raining every so often, or.
If any of you live in Melbourne, I know that some people say that about Melbourne too, that the weather can change really quickly. It can be really sunny and then all of a sudden rain comes in. So I don't know, maybe Guam is like Melbourne.
Always got to have your umbrella.
Oh, I don't know. I wouldn't deal with that. I'm never prepared with an umbrella. I always forget my umbrella and then I get wet and I don't know. Let's go to our next question from Ethan. Mr. Herd's class. Hi, Ethan.
Hi, Ethan.
How would you feel if you had to live with the thought that you were under threat? How would that make you feel, do you think, personally?
Well, I don't think anyone would like to live under the threat of something like a nuclear missile strike. I imagine that it would be quite a scary thing, but I also think that maybe if you live somewhere like Guam, it's not something, like as we were saying, it's not something that would be such a new thing for you if you've grown up sort of hearing that stuff a lot. But I think that this is one of the reasons why this story is a big deal, right? Because people shouldn't have to live in fear. People shouldn't have to live under the threat of, a nuclear strike. And I think that's something that most people around the world would agree with. And so that's why people are looking for ways that we can resolve these political disputes and situations without having to resort to those kinds of threats, because no one should have to live like that. I don't think it'd be nice at all.
Here. Let us know. Write in your messages of support to the people of Guam. Just to say, what? You shouldn't have to live in fear. It's unfortunate that you do. But you do have a beautiful island, so that's very nice. Thomas from Mr. Herd's class wants to know, why is there so many US Defense Forces on Guam?
Right, good question. There are lots. 1/3 of Guam is Defence Forces, and in fact, out of the about 163,000 people that live there, about 6,000 or 7,000 of those people are military people. So Guam is very, very heavily militarised, and the reason for that is a historical one. Why Guam is, and it goes back to when the US arrived in Guam and decided to claim it as a US territory. And that's because of its geographical location, as we saw. It's close to Asia and a long way from the US. So it's a very strategic place for the US to have. They took it over in 1898. In World War II, the Japanese invaded and held Guam for a couple of years. But then the US took it back in 1944. And ever since then, it's been a US territory. And since then, the US have kept it very heavily militarized because it's so close to Asia, because it's close to North Korea, and because for them it's a strategic military hub in the world. It's like the US presence near Asia, that is Guam. And so they have to keep it really safe. And they've got a lot of military personnel that go from Guam into Asia and back. And so, it just makes sense for them to have a lot of their military there.
Now, from Mark Oliver College wants to know, why are they fighting over land? Are they fighting over the land at Guam?
So they're not actually fighting over the land at the moment. They have certainly in the past, that war, the Spanish-American War in 1898 and the Second World War in 1944, they were definitely battles over Guam itself. Who was going to occupy it, who was going to rule there, which territory it would belong to. But at the moment, it's more about, it's not really about the land itself, like Guam, like who's going to rule there. I think there's no one's contesting that it's a US territory. It's just being used as kind of like something, like a place to threaten in the like kind of bigger political conversations that are happening, if you know what I mean. So it's not like anyone's going to invade Guam and take over Guam. It's more just like about threatening the people on there because they're US people, not because they want to take over Guam.
Yeah, it's not like North Korea is saying, oh, we want to live on Guam too. They're just doing it as a threat, which It's even meaner, really. But anyway, it's a mean thing to do, to threaten people. Let's never threaten people. I'm not a fan of it.
The lesson of today.
Yes, don't threaten people. I'm very, very strong on this. Right, Bree from Mark Oliphant College, there's my editorialising. Bree from Mark Oliphant College says, do kids go to school on Guam?
Absolutely. Yep. Sorry, you can't get out of school just because you live on Guam. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of schools on Guam, as we found out when we were trying to contact some kids that lived over there. Quite a few of the colleges there are military colleges, and so they're just for the kids of military personnel who live there. So a lot of US soldiers will do a stint over in Guam for a certain amount of time and then maybe go back to the US. And while they're there, their kids have to go to school, and they take their families with them to Guam. And so some of the colleges there are just for US kids. But there is plenty of other schools as well. Yeah, I think if there's 163,000 people living there, a lot of those are going to be kids, and what are they going to do all day? They need an education too.
That probably means you'd get heaps of new friends all the time, because there'd be heaps of new kids coming to the island with all the army people coming through.
Yeah, with their families, exactly.
That's a bit cool. Right, Tommy wants to know, are Guam people working on a big underground bunker? Do they have some sort of secret plan that could, bury down to the centre of the earth or do anything?
Oh,
we don't really know,
sounds like
do we?
you might have more information than us.
I think you have
Give
a
me
plan,
a call.
Tommy. Yeah. Is that what we do? Well, I don't know. A bunker probably cost a lot of money.
Yeah, I imagine so. And it's an island. I wonder how far you go before you hit water. Maybe you end up drowning everyone.
And, okay, here's the problem with the bunker. I love the idea of the bunker, but you wouldn't be able to fit all the people on the island in the bunker, so you'd have to choose who gets to go in the bunker and who doesn't, which could get a little bit tense.
Yeah.
Because how do you choose? Do you do a lottery system? Do you actually pick people? I wouldn't want to be in charge of that.
I reckon it'd just be a free-for-all, like whoever comes out alive.
Whoever fits in, but then you might get crushed in there, because there'd be so many people trying to get into the bunker. Yeah, look, I don't know about this bunker anymore.
If anyone has
nervous.
made that bunker, I hope they've taken all of this into account.
It'd be a good bunker. You want it to be comfortable though, wouldn't you? Like, what would you take into a bunker if you were going in there? Like you were running under there, you're going, right, I can grab one thing. This is a question without notice. What would you grab? Like,
Can you take a friend? Are they a thing? Or are they coming with you too?
Okay, you've got a friend. What else would you take? Would you like one like object or thing?
Food?
Like photos? No, there's food there.
Okay, there's food there.
Yeah.
Oh, good question. Maybe like, can I take my phone? Is that too boring?
No. Well, although your phone would stop working if the attack happened because all the things on the top.
Oh, there's
I haven't thought about this before. This is really interesting.
Nothing else to take. What do you? A board game?
Board game's a good one. Pack of cards, maybe. Just to put something to pass the time, because you might get a bit bored down there.
Yeah.
Some DVDs.
Or just like a big comfy doona to snuggle into.
Oh yeah. Could get cold underground, or maybe it's warm. I don't know. I've never been in a bunker.
Yeah.
You've started something here, Tommy. I do like it though. This bunker talk is very interesting. Right. Lola wants to know, why don't all the people on Guam just move to a different place?
Well, that would be pretty unfair, I reckon. Imagine someone telling you, why don't you just leave where you live and go and live somewhere else? It's not something that people generally want to do. When people have grown up somewhere, or they're raising a family somewhere, they go to school somewhere, they want to be able to stay and live, and Guam especially sounds like a really nice place to live. But yeah, I mean, I get your question. You're saying, why not just leave somewhere if it's under the threat of attack? And really the answer to that is it's not practical. And, North Korea has not just threatened Guam, North Korea's threatened Australia in the past, North Korea threatens the US.
Japan.
If everywhere that got threatened, evacuated, we would end up with a lot of refugees, a lot more refugees around the world. It just, People can't all leave a place just because it gets threatened. I'm sure, maybe some people do. Maybe some people, it concerns them, it worries them, and they decide to leave. But, most of the time, people decide to stay where they are, even if it is under threat.
Yeah, people love their homes. And again, as we said before, if you get threatened all the time, you just get used to it eventually and it just becomes part of your life.
Yep.
Sadly. Grace wants to know, what is the world doing to prevent North Korea from carrying out these threats? Is there anything we can all do at all?
Well, there are disagreements on what the best way to go about this is. Certainly, the US, because Guam is a US territory, the US is sort of taking charge of, I guess you would say, President Donald Trump has made it very clear that the US will take action against North Korea if they carry out attacks on any of its allies. And the US has lots of allies. Australia is one of the US allies. And so basically, I guess the US allies are kind of doing what they need to do to support the US in that. And yeah, I think it's kind of all happens at a high up government level. At the moment, there's not sort of anything you can do as an individual. But, governments work together to try and stop things like this happening, nuclear attacks, because they are devastating things. They're terrible. We don't want them to happen anywhere in the world. And so, lots of the world's leaders will work together to make sure that, something like this doesn't go ahead.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Part of it can be that sort of upper level thing, like you were talking about with like things like threats, but then part of it can be just like things like sanctions. So making it harder for them to do trade and make money, putting pressure on them through other countries that they might do trade with already. So there's a few ways around it, and I think they're probably trying as many as they can because it's a big threat. But you just never know, and it's ultimately very hard because in the end they have to make a decision not to do it and to change their course of action. So you can't kind of force it to happen. So Clara wants to know, why would the kids in Guam need to bring towels if there's a nuclear bomb? Now, we were talking about this beforehand because we kind of didn't know. And we did a little bit of research, and we think, so this is just something that we've seen on a couple of websites on the internet, so it's not confirmed, but apparently things like towels can be actually quite good to protect your skin and other areas of your body if there's a nuclear attack, because you can get burnt from the radiation. And so the towel can actually be quite helpful in protecting you. So we think that's why it is, but we don't know for sure. But it is a very common thing in some of those countries that are threatened to make sure they have towels around. So there must be some sort of protection in it.
And if there is, an attack and you have to go somewhere and wait somewhere for a long time, which is probably what would happen, you'd be in a room somewhere and you wouldn't be able to go home, you wouldn't be able to go outside, you'd have to just stay there for ages and ages and ages. What do you need? You need some food, you need some water. A towel's probably going to be useful in some way. So it's good. It's a good little survival kit object, I guess.
Doubles as a blanket. Also a sort of a pillow. Could be like a mat to sit on.
You could wet it and
tent.
Wash yourself with it.
Yes, like a shower. What else? You could
paint on it.
Make a swan with it.
Yeah.
Well, that's a bit vague. Pass the time though. Right, Mason wants to know, how far is Guam from America? Now, I don't know whether we know K's, but let's bring up the map again so you can see it right up close again, because it's a long way away. There we go, we're on the map.
There we go. So you can see the United States there on the right-hand side, and you can see North Korea, or you can see Guam and North Korea there on the left. Remembering that the Earth is not flat, it is a circle, so they do join up. But yes, a long way away you can see Guam and United States are on opposite sides of the world, and pretty much because Guam's close to North Korea, the US and North Korea are also pretty much on the opposite side of the world, so a long way away.
Yeah, like, I find it quite interesting that, Guam is so much closer to so many other countries than the United States. Like, even Hawaii, right out there in the middle of the Pacific, it's still a long way from there. It's actually, by that map, closer to Australia, so it's very interesting to think about, isn't it?
Yeah, I think Guam is actually about 2,500 kilometres away from any land at all, any other land or mainland.
That's amazing.
No land at all, maybe not. I think there's islands around it. But mainland, 2,500 kilometres, it's a long way. It takes a long time to get to.
I feel like after this, I want to see Guam at some point in my life. It looks really nice. I think that's a really nice place to visit. I would really like to go. Look. Oh, there's a picture of Guam.
Oh, paradise. Oh,
look at that. Imagine swimming out there. You could have a look around.
And it is, one of Guam's main, their economy thrives on tourism. That's one of their big industries over in Guam. It's close to Japan, and a lot of Japanese a lot of Japanese people go to Guam for their holidays. It's kind of like, I guess, our Bali. Australia has Bali and Japan has Guam.
I feel like that's a tropical dance to do. I don't know why. Just felt like that was the right thing to do.
Never figured something
Guam. Top place. A couple of other Guam questions from James from Earlwood Public School. Do you think...
Earlwood?
Yes.
I grew up in Earlwood.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, hi
Hey.
James. You two are probably friends. Is Guam a fun place to go? Do you think Guam is a fun place to go?
Haven't been, want to go, reckon it is. And
Yeah.
if you go by what Gia and Ezra and Tobias told us, it is a fun place, and I believe them, and I want to check it out.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. I reckon that's where we'll leave it for. Oh, yeah, we pretty much run out of time. So that's about all we have time for today. Ruby, thank you very much for answering all those questions. Give her a round of applause. I'm assuming that's an internet round of applause. I can hear the applause from here. Pat on the back. That's very, very... Oh, yeah, there we go. Round of applause from our helper, Daniel. Right, thank you very much for joining us. Heaps and heaps of questions, and welcome to all the new schools to Ask a Reporter. We very much like having new schools along, so thank you for sending in your questions. And we will be back next week with more Ask a Reporter. In fact, I think you're in the hot seat again, talking about
dreams.
No.
About the High Court.
High Court.
Yeah, even funner.
Ruby's doing 2 stories this week. One is about dreams. No one else knows that. That's a little bit of a sneaky tip. And the other one is about the High Court. We will be asking you to send in your questions about the High Court next week. So tune in then.
Cool.
It'll be brilliant. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you next week for more Ask a Reporter.
See you guys.